Josh, the bonus to the elders and Apostle Great Millstone. We're talking about restrictions and certainty, citation to the hopeful that expect on the forecast of the earth. Okay. So right now I got another video entitled The Prophet's Primary Role. Okay. The prophet's primary role, right? That's something that the Holy Spirit put in my spirit, right, to go about, to go on about, to talk about, right? Because what is the prophet's primary role? Okay. Many people think the prophet's role is to just be, to be these, basically these dead weight, okay, nobodies, right? Go, no dead weight nobodies. Because the prophets are nobodies according to this world, but we are somebody in the spiritual realm. We are somebody. The people of this world, right? The masses, right? Think the prophet's primary role is to be nobodies, dead weight, to be losers, okay, without a job, without nothing going on, right? These grumpy, people, that the Lord called, right, to just rebuke, right, just rebuke everyone, right? Don't just rebuke everyone. Don't exhort them. Don't warn them. Don't instruct them. Just tell them that they're going to die. Just tell them that they're going to get destroyed, right? That's what many people think prophet's primary role is, right? To be homeless, okay, right? But that's far from the truth, contrary to popular belief. That's far from the truth, right? The prophets, we are, we are, you know, we are somebody in the spiritual realm, right? We are a special type of spirit, right? That was created, right, for the lot of being our prophet, a teacher, right? You know, we live simple lives, right? We don't live lives. We don't live polished lifestyle. We don't live, the rich and famous lifestyle, right? We live simple lives, right? The Lord speaks about being content, right? Is all about he likes content. Because when you're content, right? When you relying on your basic necessities, the food, water, and and a roof over your head, right? Those are the things the Lord, He like, right? Because it shows you ultimate that you're in a humble spirit, right? The Lord, especially about the Lord near Psalm 34, right? The Lord, He's not to the He's not to the broken heart and says such that be of a contrite spirit. So the Lord, when you're in a state of content, right? You're not your mind, your mindset is off of trying to get rich and famous, right? Your mindset is off trying to become a celebrity, right? Your mind is off of trying to, live like the trying to live like the what's it saying? Joneses, right? Trying to live like the Joneses, right? Your mouth is off of, of those worldly things, right? That doesn't mean anything, right? That's all vanity, right? Under the sun, okay? But when you are in a state of being content, right? You just working your day-to-day job, right? Eating food to survive, right? Studying the word of the Lord, right? And doing the will of the Lord, okay? And you're in a state of being of a contrite spirit, right? Of a spirit, right? But the prophet supposed to be, just worthless, nobodies, right? Doesn't care about their parents, etc. Right? People just, that's how we know people are in this world, right? Because the world, that's how the world thinks, right? Okay? That's how somebody in the world thinks, okay? They also think that the prophet's supposed to be, these top elders, right? Like no prophets not supposed. There's no such thing as a young prophet. There are young prophets, right? And there are prophets that are old. Okay, it doesn't matter, right? About the age. The age doesn't matter, right? It's the spirit that's in that person, right? And that person was sent by Yahweh, by the Lord. Okay, Yahweh. By Shem Yahshua. All right. So yeah. So I'm gonna go into now. The prophets are here back today, right? And what they're doing is their role right now is what prophesying, right? You know, to the masses, right? To the nations, okay? Giving them warning and reproving them, right? So I'm gonna get here Jeremiah 28. Jeremiah 28 and 8 reads, the prophets that have been before me and before thee of old prophesied both against many countries, many nations, right? And against great kingdoms, great like the Romans, Babylon, okay, the Persians, the Medes, okay, the Greeks, right? This modern day captivity, right? Where the prophets, the Lord had the prophets scattered into whether it be Babylon the Great, America, okay, or whether it be the United Kingdom, Canada, Germany, right, Japan, right? The prophets, the true men of the Lord are prophesying against those kingdoms, okay, saying that the Lord is coming back to destroy them, all right? Of war and of evil and of pestilence, right? Right, that's what we're saying, right? That's what the man, GMS, the top elders from across the GMS on down, it's prophesizing that war is coming, right? The third world is coming, right? The Lord is returning, right? Mass pestilence, mass disease is coming, okay? Famine, right? Plagues, are coming. The trouble of the Israelites, the trouble of the Lord chosen nation, right? The Israelites, but ultimately is the troubles of the whole world, right? Because the whole world gonna get impacted by evils, right? Just all manner type of weakness, okay, coming, right? Yeah, so. And it's in that to be in that role, right? It's honorable, right? But also you don't get a reward. There's no reward on this side for being in that role, right? The scripture speaks about how we are unprofitable servants, right? So don't expect, right, to get a reward, a profit, right? For on this side, right? We're not expecting these people to give you money, right? To give you cash, right? Or the Lord just to, have a bunch of money just appear in front of your face, right? For doing His work on the side, right? Because what are you gonna do with it? Ultimately, it's just gonna turn you. It's gonna turn you to, it's gonna suffocate your faith, right? It's gonna suffocate the truth, right? From you, right? Because you have many brothers that don't know how to deal with that all that type of money, right? They just might get that money, and just start teaching, right? So this is why we don't expect to get any financial benefit, okay, on this side from the Lord, right? But we do expect to get a reward in the kingdom, reward in the spiritual realm, right? Right? We do expect to get a reward from them, right? Lord will, if we continue to endure, right, patiently, okay, to the end. So you have many people in this world trying to play prophet, right? Thinking that, that they want, like, for them to be Christians, right? Thinking that, they're pastors, right? Or they're prophets, right? Or prophets, right? That are in the hearted houses, in Christian churches, right? Are really men of the Lord. They're not men of the Lord. They're just playing a prophet, right? They're playing the prophet, right? You have the real prophets back here today, proclaiming the true names of the Lord, Yahweh, proclaiming the chosen nation of the Lord, the Israelites, Yahshua, you so-called blacks, Hispanic, Native Americans, right? Jamaicans, Haitians, right? Mexicans, okay? Proclaiming the true wicked, right? That's current rulership, you know. So the prophets, they're the true prophets is playing the true prophet's role, right? They're in the lot today, just like we're in Jeremiah 2:8, right? That's the role of the prophet. But you have the play prophets, right? In these Christian churches, right? Thinking that they were chosen by the Lord, but they were chosen by the Lord for what? For really nothing, right? Because you have people that like to say they were called by the Lord, right? But the Lord, what the Lord said, they said they have spoke. They I'm not gonna I'm gonna try to paraphrase it, but basically the Lord said they ran but I have not sent them. Okay, they spoke and I have not basically spoken to them. Okay, so you have these prophets right here, running, right, prophesizing, but the Lord haven't even chosen them to be a prophet. Okay, they don't have the Holy Spirit working with them. Okay. So yeah, learn your role in this truth, right? So I'm going to hear Ezekiel, right? So Ezekiel, this is Ezekiel calling to being a prophet, to Ezekiel role of coming to his Ezekiel commission of coming into the role of a prophet, right? So this is not something that you just can go to your local government facility and apply for a role of a prophet, right? Or go to one of these seminars, right? And learn all these different precepts, about the Bible that you don't, but you're not really knowing anything, right? These seminars teach you the false teachings, right? And then you get a college degree, and that says you can be a pastor. That says you can be a prophet, right? No, that's not how the Lord worked, right? The Yahushua spoke about that, okay? The prophets they were the Lord said what he would choose the prophets according to his heart, right? And I would choose pastors according, the Lord said I would choose pastors according to my heart, and they should fill you with knowledge and truth, right? With real knowledge and truth, right? Not just this make believe of everything will be okay, right? You can continue to live how you want to live. You can continue to worship Jesus. You continue to worship the false God, the Lord, and you won't get any repercussion for it, right? You can continue to eat pork, eat shrimp, and you don't get any repercussion for it, right? You can continue to just live your just free balling, right? And you won't get any repercussion for it, right? That's the mindset of these play prophets, right? And these hard house and these Christian churches, okay? That's the mindset of someone who got a college degree, to be a prophet, right? According to Esau, right? Esau standards, right? That's on a 401k plan, right? The true prophets, right? They were chosen. The Lord formed the prophets in the womb, right? He put that spirit, he put the spirit of the spirit of a prophet in that person, in that flesh, in that, so the Lord, what you get, you have something of a calling, right? A calling, right? When you are called, right? That when the Lord, he activate that spirit, that spirit of prophet within you, right? He activated within you, right? And that's basically your calling, right? Many brothers have testimony of how they got called, commissioned to the truth of being a prophet, being a teacher, right? The commission of being they many brothers have many testimonies, right? I have my own testimonies, right? My own personal experiences, right? You know, the Lord shaking me out of my sleep, right? The Lord, he just continued to just my spirit, really literally shaking me out of my sleep, right? And what I did, right? I got on my knees, right? I told the Lord, I will worship you. Just show me the truth. I just know that something in my spirit have always been in me. That was something more than just who I am, right? And guess what? Before I got called to the truth of knowing the name of the Lord, I was in the Christian church, called on Jesus, right? Thinking that that I'm a African American, right? That's who I am, an African American, But since I've been called, the Lord had woken me up, right? He had shaken me out of my sleep, right? The Lord, He said what, you know, that how the Lord did, what should we call it? I believe He did, not Saul, I think Samuel. He shook in Samuel out of his sleep. Because every time Samuel tried to go to sleep, fuck it if I'm wrong, right? If I'm wrong, I'm going to correct myself after this lesson. But before, let me get it. Let's see. I'll come back. Yeah, so the Lord, He called Samuel. He called Samuel, right? Right? He said Samuel, right? And Samuel, what Samuel did, Samuel went to his father Eli and said, he thought that was Eli calling him, right? But no, that was the Spirit of the Lord, right? And we don't know for sure if the Lord would actually say Samuel's name in the Hebrew, right? It could just have been something like my spirit, the Lord just tapping on my spirit, right? Or the Lord probably spoke to Samuel in a dream, right? But whatever it is, the prophet, they're called, right, at an early age usually, before they are, because the Lord he deal with the young, when you're young, right, you are ready, you really have the energy to prophesy, you have the energy to do the work of the Lord. When you're old, right, you don't really have that much energy, right, to do the work of the Lord, to study, to do things, right, But the Lord, He does deal with the old and the young, right? The old, because they're that knowledge, their experience, right? They know more than a young man, right? Than a young prophet. Which we call the old prophet elders, right? Because they have more experience and knowledge, right? Than we do as the young, right, prophets, okay, young teachers, right? Yeah, so the point is, so I'm going to get here to Ezekiel, going to Ezekiel calling, right? So Ezekiel 2:1 reads, and says, and she said unto me, Son of man, this is Yahweh speaking, stand upon thy feet, and I will speak unto thee. And the Spirit entered unto me when he spake unto me, and set me upon my feet. That I heard him that spake unto me. And he said unto me, Son of man, I send thee to the children of Israel. This was during the captivity of the Israelites, right? The captivity of Babylon. Israelites in Babylon, right? This was during the time Babylon was ruling, right? So Israel, because Israel can be referring to the southern kingdom or it can be referring to the whole nation, But for the context, right, we're gonna say that this Israel is referring to the whole nation, right? Because really the whole nation went off, right? From Judah all the way down to Ephraim, right? From the southern kingdom all the way down, from the northern kingdom all the way down to Israel in the Bible usually referring to the northern kingdom, which is Ephraim, the Native Americans, etc. Right? But going to Judah, right? It usually referring to the southern kingdom, which is Judah, Levi, and Benjamin. But for context, for qualification, right, purposes, we're gonna say that this children of Israel is mainly referring to everyone, to the southern and the northern kingdom, right? Because from Judah, which is the head of the nation of Israel, right? You know, they the head, right? But they went off, right? So the whole head is sick, as roughly paraphrasing, right? From Judah all the way down to the northern kingdom, right? The whole head is sick. Everyone went off. Everyone rebelled, right? So he said unto me, Son of man, I send thee to the children of Israel, to a rebellious nation that has rebelled against me. They and their father have transgressed against me even unto this very day. Okay. So yeah, you know. So the Lord said that the for sin for rebellious is a sin of witchcraft. So the Lord likened Judah and Israel, you know, going off as witchcraft. And it's like I'm at the end of the stream, you know, it's raining, it's pouring. I don't have an umbrella. But I do have my, it's like all right.